So where do we find Gaius at the beginning of the third series?
We find Gaius, I think at the beginning of the series, we find Gaius pretty much where he was at the end. Of course, the big thing about the beginning is that Morgana has disappeared, of course, for a year. And on her return, it's a bit of a dilemma for Merlin because he killed her, in a sense. So there's a bit of a worry there of what's going to happen to Merlin. But things develop for Gaius as the series gets going. A little bit of love interest for the first time. An old girlfriend appears in the shape of Pauline Collins, a fellow sorcerer from the dark days. And that's a nice episode for Gaius. And he gets possessed by a goblin at one stage. He becomes rather nasty, and I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you that. But anyway, I've told you. So it's an interesting series for Gaius. But at the beginning, it's much as per. But the main interest is the beginning is Morgana's return, and the fact that her character's a bit darker.
And what about his relationship with Uther? Because throughout the past two series, it's been quite fractious. At one point, he was locked up for using magic. How does that develop in this series?
Well, it's interesting because you find out much more about Uther in the series. You find out much more about Merlin's background in the series. And you find a bit more about Gaius. So there's one big revelation in the series, which I'm not allowed to tell you, vis-a-vis Uther and Morgana, which even Gaius didn't know about. So the relationship with Uther is always a problem for Gaius because he was a wizard of the old religion when Uther was around. So even he is forced at times, Gaius, to use magic in this series, which he doesn't resort to very often, but he does a bit.
And now the Great Dragon returns as well in the third series. Gaius was never really very happy with Merlin dealing with the dragon, so what can you tell us about that in the third series?
Well, I'm not supposed to tell you that, of course, but you know, so I'll tell you. Yes, I think at one stage, Gaius realizes that only the wizard can help, only the dragon can help. So I think I'm allowed, maybe not, but I think there is a time when Gaius says to Merlin, you have to go to the wizard. So even Gaius gives in at times and allows him to use the dragon.
And now we've heard that this is the darkest series yet. Would you agree with that?
I think it is in some ways. I mean, they're always the writers are always coming up with extraordinary. There's a lot of advancement, going towards the history we know about. You begin to see a lot of knights coming. Maybe the beginning of the Round Table, things like that. So it's a very advancing series in that sense, and I think it is probably a bit darker, and some of it is quite frightening. Some pretty nasty monsters in it.
And have you had much interaction with Merlin fans, and what has that been like?
I haven't had a huge amount of. I mean, I notice that my mail, for example, it comes from all over the world now, where it used to be more or less UK based. But now you get people from Australia, you get people from China. I had a lovely letter from a girl in China. So it's a much more universal thing. So that's when one can tell. I don't get recognized very much as Gaius because I wear a wig, but my mail certainly is worldwide now when it wasn't before.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit more just about this love interest of Gaius's? Then what can you
The
reveal
love
any details?
interest, yes. Well, Pauline Collins plays an old lover, and they were very, very close to each other, and because of Uther, really, they were separated. So when she reappears, Gaius immediately recognizes her magic touch, because she was a great wizard of the old religion, and they have a sort of a reunion, and then it turns a bit nasty again. But it was a very nice episode.
You have a lovely sort of father-son relationship with Merlin, with Colin on the show. Do you enjoy that? Tell me about that.
Yes, I mean that's the most, always the best bits. The scenes between, because most of my scenes are with Merlin, and in Colin's a consummate professional for such a young actor. So we really enjoy working together, and we're very, if we got very often our scenes are in a day, just one after another. We're very good at sort of just getting one scene ready and then moving on to the next before we go onto the floor, in terms of getting the lines right. And he's a very hard worker, great to work with, very, very exciting.